what, somebody? Vital rest. Amen. A vital rest. Let's use the pandemic to use the environment to give a vital rest. The pandemic has shown how earth can recover if we allow, the Pope said this, if we allow this earth to rest. Do you see this right here? And the only commandment that deals with rest is the Sabbath. Brothers and sisters, something is getting ready to come down. And look what I found out on the internet. It has an article called 21 Days of Green Living. 21 Days of Green Living. And look what it says. Observe an eco-Sabbath. Have you heard of 0 hours? Eco-Sabbath is somewhat similar to 0 hour. Look what it says right here. It says why. It's dealing with what, why, and how. What? Listen to this right here. Commit to 4 hours per week. That's 2.4%. Do it for a whole day each week to cut your impact by 14.4%. Why? A carbon, now this is where we're going to get into our study. A carbon what, somebody? Footprint. And remember what Conrad Vine here had? Carbon what? Footprint for his travel, right? Notice this right here. The carbon footprint. Listen to this right here. The carbon footprint. Oh, I got to show this to you. The carbon footprint is the total greenhouse gas emissions caused by a what? Individual. Watch this right here. By event, organization, service, or product expressed as carbon dioxide equivalent. Greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane can be emitted through the burning of fossil fuels, production and consumption of food, manufactured goods, material, wood, roads, buildings, transportations, and other services. Although some production of greenhouse gases is natural, notice this right here. Human activity has increased the production substantially. So in order to bring it down, you got to control humans' behavior. They're going to watch everything they do. But look at how do you do it? Look what it says. For one afternoon, one day or afternoon, even 1 hour a week, don't buy anything. Don't use any machines. Don't switch on anything electric. Don't cook. Don't answer your phone. In general, don't use any resources. In other words, for this regular period, give yourself and the planet a break. And this person is part of the World Economic Forum. Yes, hold on one second, sister. So this is very serious about observing an eco-Sabbath. And this is, I'm telling you, a sign of the times. Now remember, how the Sunday law is going to come in, we know it's religious, and we know it's religious to the core, amen? But I believe it's going to have different facets in order to reach all of humanity. Remember, the papacy is like a chameleon. They become all things to all men. Yes, sister?
I think I watch what they're doing. They're starting out slow. So that meeting they're having on the 13th and the 14th, I don't believe that they're going to come up with one day. I believe they're going to say everybody, each one like they had, observe this day, observe that day. Then they come back and saying, well, that wasn't enough. It's not working. So in order to make the most impact, we all got to come together and decide one day. Do you see how you get desensitized? Start small with this. Everybody pick a day. Whatever your religion said is fine. But wait a minute, that didn't work. We didn't see the changes we thought. So now we're all going to have to come together and make a sacrifice and do it on one day. And guess what that day will be?
Sunday. See, this thing is very subtle. Look at that right there. 21 days. I mean, see, this is really, it's coming at it to reach the secular people, but nevertheless, it's still religious from the core. What you want to say, my brother?
I just wanted to say, do you guys see the hypocrisy and disingenuousness of their argument and what they use to attack those who want to observe the 7-day Sabbath? They've been saying for years, oh, that Jewish Sabbath, oh, and they were saying it with such satisfaction and mockery. Oh, that's right, the Jewish Sabbath, right? You can't burn a candle on that day, right? Or you can't use no electricity on that day, right? Yeah, but what are they advocating for Sunday sacredness? The lack of using technology, electricity, everything that they criticized about those who were trying to observe the Sabbath, and mockery, they uphold in terms of keeping Sunday.
That's right. That's right. My sister over here. Can you give it to my sister over here? And we're going to show you something that's, show you this video that is dealing with the carbon footprint. And you got to listen to this right here. Look at this right here. And for those of you that are online, you can look this down. It's called Climate Change, Your Carbon Footprint Explained. So now they're going to explain to you what your carbon footprint is. And now it's out right now for individuals and for everybody. And I believe that this is going to be tied in with the no-buy, no-sell system. Yes, my sister.
Just piggybacking on what the sister said over there earlier, it's slowly been introduced just like when we were in a pandemic. First it was something voluntary.
Right.
Maybe we could do this way, that way. And then when they saw it wasn't working, then they came out and really enforced it.
Yes.
And a lot of people now will say there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
Nothing wrong with, when is the Sabbath? And a lot of people don't know when the Sabbath day is. My daughter, she's 6, and she had a conversation and told this lady, Saturday is the Sabbath.
Right.
And the lady was like, well, I don't know when the Sabbath is. I don't know when which day is the first day or the second day. So a lot of people will be deceived because they don't know. And it's our responsibility to tell them which day it is.
And that's why the spirit of Brother Chanel, can you give me the microphone, please? This is the reason why the spirit of prophecy says that the world needs 7-day Adventists now than ever before. Why? Because of the truth in which we believe. We are told in Testimonies Volume 9 that 7-day Adventists have been set in the world, thank you, as watchmen and light bearers. We are to be watchmen. So let's go to the screen right here. We're going to show you about this issue of carbon footprinting. And let me tell you, this thing is real. Carbon footprint, what is it? Listen to this right here.
You know you should probably reduce it, but what exactly is your carbon footprint? The carbon footprint refers to the total amount of greenhouse gases released into the Earth's atmosphere as a result of the activities of an individual or an organization. Remember, greenhouse gases trap heat inside the atmosphere, and that's overheating the planet. So if you want to work out your own carbon footprint, you need to know the amount of greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, you're responsible for creating. It's a difficult thing to measure precisely, and there are different definitions about how best to calculate it. But roughly speaking, there's the direct impact of using energy when we travel or to power our homes. And there's the indirect impact of the energy that's used to create all the things we use or consume. In the developed world in particular, transport is a big part of your carbon footprint. Cutting down on the use of petrol or diesel cars and taking fewer flights is one of...
Remember they was talking about car-free Sundays? See? So you see how this is coming into the play? Satan is just, see, the devil knows that people are not going to do it for religious reasons, the people who may not be Christians and atheists and other than that. But if you tie the spiritual concept of the Sabbath to something secular and practical, then people may go along with it. Listen to this.
Direct impact of using energy when we travel or to power our homes, and there's the indirect impact of the energy that's used to create all the things we use or consume. In the developed world in particular, transport is a big part of your carbon footprint. Cutting down on the use of petrol or diesel cars and taking fewer flights is one of the most effective ways of reducing it. The place you live also contributes to your personal footprint. It's important to make sure your home is heated or cooled efficiently and is well insulated. The more you can use sustainable energy like solar or wind power, the more you cut your emissions. The stuff you use at home also adds to the problem. All that plastic, metal and cardboard takes a lot of energy to produce and dispose of. So recycling can help reducing your carbon footprint, but not as much as how you travel or heat and cool your home. Then there's your diet. Above all, red meat makes your carbon footprint bigger because cows produce so much methane, another greenhouse gas, and huge numbers of trees are cut down to create pastures on which cattle can graze. In the developing world, polluting stoves are a real problem too, so it's important to try to replace them with more efficient methods of cooking. But overall, people in poorer countries produce far smaller amounts of greenhouse gases than people in richer countries do. So, if you look at just what a country produces, the average amount of carbon dioxide emissions per person in the United States is about 16.1 tons per year. In China, it's 7.1 tons, and in the UK, it's about 5.5 tons. But in the Democratic Republic of Congo, it's only 0.03 tons. while in Qatar, which has a really small population but produces so much oil and gas, it's 38.6 tons.
Because it produces so much oil and gas. That's where we get all our gas at. Now notice this right here. If you really look at this, the tons in which the average individual produces can be reduced if they rest. Am I right? So what happens is eventually the idea is going to come that we need to have we need to have a day of rest in order to reduce the individual, corporate, universal, country tons of production. Yes, my brother, you can just sit right there. Amen. What you want to say?
I just wanted to say, you know, a lot of times we take things at face value.
You can take it off the screen, Richard.
We take things at face value, especially with individuals who have some apparent credentials behind their name. But my question is, how do we even know if any of this is valid?
Well,
we don't.
They just put, hey, we don't know. But they put it out there like it is true.
Exactly. Since when was there ever such a thing as measuring carbon dioxide gas output into the world? And then tons is a lot. How in the world is a person producing, what did they say, 17.1 tons? How is that even possible? That doesn't make any sense.
It's what it is. You can put it right there. So let's look at the rest of this video. Now, besides Saudi Arabia, which country produces, watch this right here, which country besides Saudi Arabia? Now, Saudi Arabia gets a pass because Saudi Arabia is where all the oil is produced. But notice this right here. Which country, as you see here, produces the most? The United States. Who's going to lead out in the enforcement of the Sunday law? The United States, because they have to set an example for the whole world. So this is serious. Now watch this.
Congo, it's only 0.03 tons, while in Qatar, which has a really small population but produces so much oil and gas, it's 38.6 tons. Now, that's just production. It doesn't take account of all the other things we've talked about, how much you consume. But obviously, the more money you have, the more you tend to consume. So if people in richer countries really want to reduce their carbon footprint, they need to make huge changes in their lifestyles. It can be
That's exactly what the Pope said. You got to make a change in your lifestyle.
done, and new technologies to make things greener are coming on stream all the time. But it is a reminder that the declared aim in many countries of going carbon neutral by the middle of this century means a revolution in the way we live.
Revolution in the way in which we live. It's a great danger with that. And let's go back to the ticket. Your estimated carbon footprint. Notice this here, a carbon footprint for a ticket. Have mercy. For a plane ticket. And brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, man, this is serious. And look what they're getting with. Look what they're introducing right now. They're introducing a thing called a personal carbon allowance. What? Do you see that? A personal carbon allowance. Let me say that one time. A personal carbon allowance to help where? Cities reach their climate targets. This is in July of 2022. Now, before we go any further, Brother Richard, you can take it off of here. Now, this is where it's going to get diabolical. Richard, you can take it down, please. You can take it off the screen. This is where it's going to get very, very diabolical. Because, watch this. I'm getting ready to show you a video. Brother Richard, you can take it off the screen now. All right. So, brothers and sisters, we are seeing how diabolical, can you just go in the back? Yes, please. Yes, thank you. So, you see how diabolical it is. Now, I'm going to show you something now. It says, could a focus on city dwellers to reduce individual emissions, which is personal carbon allowances, have value in meeting city net zero targets? We're going to come back to that in just a second. But what I want to do, I want to be able to show you a video on this. This is serious. Amen. Thank you very much, Brother Richard. We're going to show you something. Now, everything that we see, when I say everything, I mean everything is connected. All this is connected. I'm going to show you a video that came out a while back on personal carbon allowance. Now notice Conrad Vine's ticket for United Airlines was a personal carbon footprint. Am I right? It was a personal carbon footprint. Now what I'm going to do is this right here. We're going to show you a video about them trying to introduce a carbon footprint personal thing for everybody. Now, I got to show you this video. This is going to make so much sense. Now, look at this right here. Now, we're going to come back to this in a second. Let's go back to the screen, Brother Richard. Personal carbon allowance. Look at this right here. My carbon, this is from the World Economic Forum, so this comes from the horse's mouth. My carbon, an approach for inclusive and sustainable what, somebody? Cities. A approach for inclusive and sustainable cities. So they want to make cities green. But notice this right here. What did the spirit of prophecy say about the city? That we're supposed to leave the what? City and move to the country. Why? Brothers and sisters, when you see this video that I'm going to show you, it explains it all right here. See, you know, there are people who are not Seventh-day Adventists. They may not even be Christians. But nevertheless, they are doing that which a lot of Seventh-day Adventist ministers ought to be doing. Do you understand this? Listen to this video.
Live your life in chains, except the difference is these chains are invisible. It's a world where every single daily choice you make is controlled by something you can't even see. A world where at any time your government could cut off your access to your own money just because you've driven a few too many miles. And
did you hear that?
A world where the poorest among us will be given more reasons to struggle, while those at the top continue to live life the way that they always have. The truth is, we could all be living in that world very soon. It's a world that is ruled above all by one thing, carbon. Before I get into this video, just a quick disclaimer. I am not a climate denier, and I'm not pretending like carbon doesn't have an impact on our planet. I'm also not a climate scientist, so I'm not going to be pretending like I know what's going on in our planet, but I am going to be sticking in my lane and talking about the financial side of carbon, and mostly the potential economic impact this could have on all of us as we move more into a carbon-obsessed world, and also talking about the potential of carbon being used as a tool of oppression by those currently in power. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. But before I do, there is an amazing newsletter that people absolutely rave about. There's so many subscribers, 60,000 plus. So make sure you check it out, link in bio. By now, no doubt you've heard the news and you've seen the headlines, and you've probably seen this girl talking passionately at the United Nations about the state of our planet.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money.
According to basically every news source around us, carbon seems to be the biggest threat on the planet right now, and the best solution that we seem to have come up with is carbon credits. Currently, this is only something that...
Did you hear this at carbon credit? Now watch this. Now this is tying in all the stuff we're covering today to show you how this Sunday law can come in a very unique way.
Big companies have to think about. However, this could all change very soon. This is in the form of PCA, Personal Carbon Allowance.
Look at that, personal carbon allowance. Now watch this right here. I'm going to show you a video with the Bitcoin thing, brother Shondale. Listen to this.
In many nations around the world, large companies already have to purchase carbon credits in order to offset the carbon they're putting.
So people are already purchasing this stuff. Companies are doing it already, so it's here in existence.
Out in the environment. The theory is that the more a business pollutes, the more it must pay to undo the damage. But there are many who argue that these kinds of carbon limits should be placed on individuals too. As early as 2008.
So they're saying that this needs to be put on individuals as well too. So you can see how the no buy, no sell system can be easily enforced.
The UK government was exploring personal carbon allowances for each British citizen. In Sweden, the Royal Institute of Technology is currently heavily discussing the implementation.
This pandemic and digitalization set the stage for revival of a cast-off idea of personal carbon allowances. This is serious. Now, this is where it's going to get very serious for us as Seventh-day Adventists.
Of a PCA for Swedish citizens. And in the journal Nature, they've spoken about how the governments of France and California have explored a similar personal carbon allowance as well. On its own, this sounds pretty great. Of course, we want to make people more aware of the actions that they take and how they're contributing to society and the state of the planet. Okay, so how would the government then track your individual carbon usage? Luckily, they have an answer for that already. I've spoken about this tool many times before on the channel, and it's called a CBDC, or the Central Bank Digital Currency.
Wow. You see that? You see how it's all tying in together?
A central bank digital currency would be a fully digital currency just like Bitcoin. But unlike Bitcoin, it wouldn't be decentralized. Instead, a CBDC would be controlled by a nation's central bank and overseen by your government, which would give them the ability to track absolutely everything you spend your money on. But that's not the part that concerns people. One of the features of a CBDC is that you would make your money fully programmable, meaning that just like the rules of a video game, your government could put rules on how you spend your cash and potentially tell you what you can and cannot spend it on. A government controlling how you spend your money might sound a little bit far-fetched, and you might be thinking that this kind of authoritarian control over your money is not going to be anything that we'll see in the future.
But the Bible says no man will be able to buy or what? So they will have authority over your money.
Unfortunately, this is already implemented in the world. In China, the government is already able to program what its citizens can and cannot spend their money on. Over the last few years, they've limited millions of people's ability to buy things like train tickets, passports, and luxury goods. They're able to do this because of China's intense social credit system that links each person's identity and actions to their bank account, allowing the government to see and to control everything a citizen does with their money. And it seems like the West is paying attention. In nations like Sweden, South Africa, and Canada, trials of programmable central bank currencies are already underway. In fact, almost half of the world's nations are at some stage of implementing this kind of programmable money, meaning no matter where in the world you live, this technology is likely only a few years away. Okay, so how does programmable money tie in with the personal carbon limit? Well, it all comes down to whether or not you've gone over your monthly usage, and if you have, there are two possible case scenarios for that. The most openly talked about penalty for a person going over their individual carbon limit is that they'd simply get charged for doing so, just the same as what happens to large companies today. Taken too many car trips this month, or bought a little bit too much meat? In that case, you'd simply get a bill at the end of each month from your government so you can pay the price of being a naughty citizen. As your entire carbon usage would be tracked by a government CBDC, there would be no way to hide how much carbon you've used. And since they now also hold the keys to your money, they won't even need to send you a bill for your excess usage. Potentially, they'll just automatically pull your fine from your bank account. But there is a second, and in my opinion, a scary thing that could happen if you do go over your monthly limit. And I'll talk about that in a second, but first I want to introduce our sponsor, and that is Skillshare. Thank you, Skillshare.
Wow, you see that? You see that?
The second option of what could happen if you go over your monthly carbon limit, and potentially this could give your government more ways of controlling your life. And in order to do so, we just have to look at what's happening in China. As we already know, the Chinese government can already take away people's ability to buy certain items through a social credit system linked to their bank account, which is exactly what your government could do as well when a programmable CBDC inevitably comes into play in the West. And it's very possible they could use a CBDC to program your spending if you step outside the limits of your monthly carbon allowance. For example, have you refilled your card too many times already this month? You could find that next time your card simply doesn't work at the pump. Or did you recently fly?
Did you hear that? Your car doesn't work at the pump because you done pumping too much gas. Do you see this, brothers and sisters? Look at this.
To the other side of the world to visit your family. Well, until your monthly limit resets, it's possible that you may not be able to buy so-called high-carbon food items like coffee, meat, chocolate, or potatoes. Again, this scenario is just theoretical at this point. However, with the power of CBDCs, it would be very easy for governments to control your money in this way and to literally be able to cut you off from buying certain things you want to buy because you've exceeded your monthly carbon limit.
You dream, you plan every night.
You hear that?
In short, this could really be the perfect tool in order to control the daily choices of a society, and it would be in the hands of the people at the top, the types of people that are constantly talking about how dangerous carbon actually is. People like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Prince Charles, who regularly fly around the world on private jets while speaking about how important it is that we all lower our individual carbon output. Or people like the World Economic Forum's leader, Klaus Schwab, who talks about making the world carbon neutral by 2050, while at the same time organizing Davos, a gathering of world leaders and elites that each year attracts a record number of the world private jets in one place, or celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio, the darling of the global environmental movement, who spends his time holidaying on the biggest yachts ever manufactured in Britain, a yacht that puts out as much carbon as almost 600 cars, a yacht that he also gets on and off via a helicopter. It seems like the people who talk most about how dangerous carbon is for the planet seem to be the most resistant to actually changing their own individual carbon footprint. And also, these are the same people that would have enough resources to buy the carbon credits that they need in order to live the lifestyle that they are continually living right now. This leads me to be considering who would be the biggest losers if carbon credits were actually to be put in place. And as always, it seems like it would be the people at the bottom of the economic food chain. It would be the poorest people in society who would be hit hardest by any kind of personal carbon allowance.
And remember, the mark of the beast, rich and poor, right? The poor people are going to definitely go along with it in order for them to have anything, and the rich are going to go along with it in order to keep their riches. Hold on one second. I'm going to finish this out.
People who are already struggling to make ends meet, who can't afford to upgrade their old diesel cars or get a brand new electric. Or those of us in society who don't have the extra budget to make more carbon conscious choices about food, clothing or lifestyle. Not only will these people struggle the most to lower their carbon footprint in the first place, but they'd also likely be the ones that would feel the biggest effects of a carbon tax if and when they eventually went over their monthly carbon limit. I do believe...
Notice there's a monthly carbon limit now, so it'll be set for each and every person. If you go over it, you can't do certain things until the next month. Do you see this right here? That's control.
That we should all be doing our part in protecting this beautiful planet that we call home, because without our home, we are not going to be alive. And I do think that humanity has a lot of room for improvement with consuming less and being really conscious about the types of decisions we make in our daily life. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be asking questions about what life might be like for most of us when personal carbon allowances inevitably become a part of our daily lives, especially when many of the people who talk about carbon the most seem to be doing the least to diminish their own carbon footprints, while at the same time doing the most to influence the carbon-obsessed future we'll soon all find ourselves to be living in. Sure, personal carbon limits could be the thing that humanity needs in order for us to progress into a greener future and to leave this destructive nature of humanity that we have currently behind us. But I do believe that we are able to also implement changes from a place of inspiration and joy rather than from some perceived authority figure telling us that we shouldn't do this whilst they seem to not be doing any changes themselves.
So, you know, we thank God for people like this who see what's going on. But notice this right here. This is a video on YouTube, and let me show you what this thing is real. Look at this right here. This is an anti-CBDC campaign. We're not saying we're anti or pro. We're just giving you the facts. Listen to this right here. This is a video that came out on YouTube about this. Watch closely. What's going on? What's going on? He can't what? Open his car. Watch this. Uh-oh. When you hear that sound, what does that mean? That's a message on your cell phone. Notice this. Dear citizen number 343-21839, you cannot drive your car today. You have exceeded your carbon footprint limit for this month. How many of you have ever had something like that? You had a limit on something to where you can only go so far. Like your ATM, okay, but I've had, minutes on your cell phone, right? So it's kind of like that. Look at that.
Don't let the system get to you.
All right, you can take it off. 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 Brother, Richard, you can turn it off. All right, now watch this right here. Let's look at the moral to this lesson now. Now let's look at the moral to this lesson, and this is where I wanted to get to. If your carbon footprint, hypothetically, if this comes to pass, it will make it almost impossible to leave the city if you're still in the city. Think about it. For those who are living in the cities, something like that is, you got a certain carbon footprint based on your location. Because now watch this. If you work in the city and you live in the country, you got to drive far, right? So you'll be putting more carbon footprint because you have to drive more. I'm telling you, this thing is real, brothers and sisters. You see, when God is God is always ahead of man. And when he says stuff, he says it for a reason. Do you understand this? So with all this stuff happening, here you go, my brother. I know you want to say something. With all this stuff happening, with climate commandments and all, religion and politics coming together on this climate change issue, and the Pope getting involved in it, eco-Sabbaths, brothers and sisters, I just believe that Satan is preparing the world to accept when apostate Protestantism gives the idea of Sunday observance. And I believe it's going to be given not just for religious reasons, but also for environmental reasons. That's just based upon inspiration. Do you understand this right here? And so I believe that we're seeing the scroll unroll right before us. Go ahead, my brother. What you want to say?
Dr. Vaith has a very, very nice...
Walter Vaith, right?
Yeah, he has a very nice series dealing with this particular issue. In that particular issue, he has two segments where he talks about the commandments. And he talks about how the beast power has a humanistic, socio version of the Ten Commandments. Mm-hmm. And you see this law, you see these principles. They've kind of done like an experiment in Africa where they're talking about a digital currency and monitoring people's resources. The beast's goal, and the apostate Protestantism will become a part of that, their goal is to, they say, everyone will be happy because everyone will own nothing. So their desire is to make everyone, of course with the exception of those who have a prominent role within this thing, poor, because the beast wants control over everything. Your money, your resources, your food, your soul. And I think that's what Revelation 18 was talking about as well.
Yeah.
And, in her was found beasts and wood and thymine wood and cinnamon and cumin and slaves and souls
of men. And you see that, and notice Revelation says slaves and souls of men. So there will be a control mechanism in the last days to where if you do not comply with this, you won't be able to get benefits. Let's go to